السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. All praise be to Allah, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our Prophet and Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My dear brothers and sisters, we continue on with the daily short talk in Ramadan. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us our fasting and our salat and our sadaqat, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open up the masajid for us and to enable us to return to our masajid soon, inshallah. We are going to continue tonight with the series that we have started last week, and that is to pick one sahabi or one tabi'i and talk about glimpses of his life that will have some lessons for us that we can implement in our own lives, but also teach to our children. And I added the teach to our children tonight because the Sahabi I selected is a child of another great tabi'i. The tabi'i I want to talk about today is Abdul Malik ibn Omar ibn AbdelAziz. So all of us know Omar ibn AbdelAziz. He was one of the Umayyad leaders, and he's considered to be the fifth righteous Khalifa in Islam because of his tremendous fairness and how he conducted his affairs and his governance. But this story is about his son Abdul Malik. Umar ibn AbdelAziz, by the way, had 15 children, 3 girls and 12 boys. So he had quite a large number of children, and Abdul Malik was the middle child. So he wasn't the oldest and he wasn't the youngest. He was right in the middle of all the other children. But Abdul Malik ibn Umar ibn AbdelAziz had some specific qualities that really were quite amazing. The first quality that he had that was really important was that he was as fair, if not more so, than his father. So he always wanted to be just in everything that he did. And I'm going to share with you some stories about that as well. He also had an amazing quality, which is to be self-conscious and to evaluate his own behavior and his own actions, and to try to correct himself every time he felt that he was off track or something was not right. And I'm going to share with you a story about that. He was also a man of tremendous learning. He spent a lot of his time, a lot of his life gaining knowledge and learning about Islam, the Quran, the Hadith, and became a scholar in his own right. I want to share with you tonight 3 stories, short stories about his life that I think exemplify the points. The first story happened shortly after his father became Khalifa. Now, the problem is that Umar ibn AbdelAziz was one of the Umayyad Khalifa. So he was during the Umayyad time period. And the leaders who came before him, and not just those leaders, but also their assistants, their ministers who worked under them, unfortunately, some of them were not particularly just in their actions. And they may have taken a piece of land from someone unjustly. They may have collected some money from some people unjustly. So there were a lot of people at the time who were treated unjustly by the predecessors of Umar ibn AbdelAziz radiyallahu anhu. And so when Umar ibn AbdelAziz came to power and he was became the Khalifa and everyone agreed upon him, he stood up and he gave a speech. And in that speech, he promised the people that he would correct the wrongs of the previous generations of leaders, and that he would look into all the injustices that were done before and try his best to fix them. And after that first day when he became the Khalifa, of course, there are a lot of dignitary type of events that happen when a new Khalifa comes to power. There are a lot of people who come to greet him. There are a lot of people who come to do what's called the bay'ah, which is the pledge of allegiance, in a way a vote, concurring that this will be the new Khalifa. And it was a long day. So by that afternoon, he finished up all the kind of official ceremonies, and he went to his home. And when he went to his home, he found the bed, and he said, let me take a nap. So he lied down to kind of take a nap. And just as he was about to fall asleep, his son Abdul Malik came to him and woke him up. And he said, you know, by the way, Abdul Malik at that time was 17 years old. So we're not talking about a 40-year-old man. We're talking about really a teenager. But he woke his father up. And when he woke him up, he didn't say, you know, Dad, or he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he addressed him with his new salutation. He was now the leader of the faithful. That's what Amir al-Mu'mineen means, is the leader of the faithful. And that was the honorary term of the Khulafa at the time. So when he woke his father up inside his home, by the way, nobody was watching them, he addressed him, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. And really, you know, that's, I want to stop there for a moment and just sidetrack for a second. It's important that we teach our children to address their parents properly. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one time, this is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he saw a man walking in the street, and behind him was an elderly man. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stopped the young man, and he said, who is this man behind you? He said, this is my father. So this is the son was walking in front and the father was walking behind him. So Rasulullah ﷺ taught him a lesson. He taught him 4 things. He said, first of all, do not walk in front of him. لا تمشي أمامه. Don't walk in front of him. So in other words, you need to make sure your father walks in front of you. You should honor him and wake him. The second thing, ولا تستسب له. Don't do anything that will cause other people to insult your father. You know, you might do something wrong and people will say, oh, his father never taught him. They kind of, or say a bad word about the father. So do not cause anyone to insult your father. وَلَا تَجْلِسْ قَبْلَهُ. And do not sit before he sits. So if you enter somewhere, and let the father sit first, and then you find a place to sit. وَلَا تَدَعْهُ بِإِسْمِهِ. And don't call him by his name. So use a term that honors him. Oh, father, dad, something. Don't call him by his name. That's not appropriate. And we see that's what Abdul Malik did. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. He called him with his highest honored name at that time, just that day. He just became Amir al-Mu'mineen that day. And he called him, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Omar ibn AbdelAziz was a little bit annoyed because he was tired all day and he just was about to fall asleep. And the son comes and, you know, wakes him up. And he said, you know, my son, I want to take a nap. I just want to nap for a little bit. قليلا أغفو قليلا. I just want to sleep for a few minutes. He said, but what about all the injustices? You just promised the people that you're going to fix them. You need to get up and begin deciphering the different injustices and trying to fix them. Subhanallah. Umar ibn AbdelAziz was still sleepy and still annoyed. He said, you know what? I can do that after Asr. I mean, let me sleep. And when Asr comes, I will get up and pray, and then I will start looking into these things. The son looked at his father and he said, can you guarantee me you're going to live till Asr? The son asked the father, can you guarantee? Look at this tremendous belief, this tremendous commitment. And he's pushing his father to live up to his commitments. He said, can you guarantee that you're going to live till Asr? When Umar ibn AbdelAziz heard that, it's as if he got a boost of energy. He got up and he said, you are right. He told the son, you are right. And he immediately headed back to the office where he was supposed to look into these matters, and he started one by one looking at all the claims of injustice. And he looked at his son and he said, Alhamdulillah, alladhi akhraja min sulbi man yu'inuni ala dini. I'm thankful to Allah who has given me an offspring, my son, who will help me in my own faith. Subhanallah. He was thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A beautiful story that tells us a lot about Omar ibn AbdelAziz and tells us a lot about Abdul Malik. He was a man who was of tremendous manner, the way he addressed his father, but he also was very strong in what's right. And he didn't let it slide. He made sure his father got up and started working on what he promised people. Omar ibn AbdelAziz, when he started working on the matters of the injustices of his day, he found that there were a lot. So he was overwhelmed by the number of claims and the number of injustices that were committed. And it became somewhat difficult for him to decipher through each one. So he decided to gather the scholars. And he gathered these scholars and he wanted them to give him a fatwa. So he asked the scholars, he said, you know, I'm looking at all these injustices that were committed before my time. I'm not the one who committed them. They were committed by others. I want you to give me a fatwa. Am I supposed to really fix all of this? Or can we just say, let's forget about what happened in the past and we start from now moving forward, doing everything correctly and justly? So he has a point of view. You know, it's too difficult to sit there and go and look into something from 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And he wanted them to say, yes, it's okay. But, and these people, you know, they thought that was kind of reasonable. So they told him, yes, it should be fine. You know, just tell the people that, you know, whatever happened in the past happened in the past. And we're not going to attend to it. But I promise you, moving forward, everything will be just. And everything will be done fairly. The problem was that Umar ibn AbdelAziz, even though he asked the question, he wasn't quite convinced by the explanation of the scholars. He wasn't quite convinced that they were giving him a real opinion that was valid and that was based on knowledge. So he began to ask other people, who else should I ask? So he kind of wanted the creme de la creme, if you want. He wanted the best of the best to really give him an opinion. And when he asked around, people told him, you know, the only person who's going to give you the honest opinion is your son, Abdul Malik ibn Omar ibn AbdelAziz. Subhanallah. Normally, you don't tell the leader to go ask his family because they're biased, right? They're going to usually give you an opinion in your favor. But people who were unrelated to him told him, you need to ask your son. He's the one who's going to give you the right answer to this question. So, in fact, he brought Abdul Malik and he explained to him the situation. And he said, oh, my son, here's the deal. I'm looking into these injustices. There are so many of them. It's too much. It's going to take me a long time and a lot of effort. And I think we should just, you know, forget about it and start from here forward. We're going to be just with everybody. Abdul Malik did not hesitate. And within seconds, he gave him an opinion. And it was so simple and so powerful that it's actually quite intriguing. You know, sometimes scholarly people make things too complicated. But Abdul Malik made it very easy. He said, you know what, Father? If you ignore the injustices of the past, then you are complicit in them. You're simply signing on that it's okay for people to commit an injustice and time will forget about it. You just do the injustice now and 10 years from now, nobody's going to care. That's basically what you're saying. So you're complicit in it. Subhanallah. And as long as you know about it, you are responsible for it. If you didn't know, you're not responsible. But if you knew that an injustice was committed and you didn't fix it, you are now the leader and you are responsible for it. And that's it. That's all he said. It's very simple. You know, when you hear it, it makes sense. Yeah, of course that makes sense. And Umar ibn AbdelAziz said, you know, that makes perfect sense to me. And he quickly changed course and began looking into the injustices of the people. Days would pass on and Abdul Malik ibn Umar decided to leave Damascus, which was the capital at the time, and he wanted to spend his time on the border, defending the Muslim border. And Umar ibn AbdelAziz was concerned about his son. He was worried that his son was so knowledgeable and so excellent at what he did that he would begin to develop some arrogance in his heart. So he decided to write him a letter. And in that letter, he wrote some beautiful words to his son. And in the letter, he starts out by saying, I thank Allah for all the great things He has given us. And I want to remind you to remember Allah's favor upon you. So he tells his son that I want you to remember Allah's favor upon you. And be careful of arrogance. Beware of arrogance, because it is the work of the shaitan. The shaitan will come to your heart and he will sow arrogance in your heart. And the shaitan is the enemy of the believers. And I did not send this letter to you because I heard anything about you, but only because I'm concerned as a father. And I don't want you to be arrogant and think yourself as being better than other people. And if I ever hear that you have become arrogant, then you will hear from me different words that will not be as pleasing to you. And he wrote that down and he gave it to his assistant, whose name was Maymun. And he told Maymun, you take this letter and you travel to my son and you give it to him. But I don't want you just to give him the letter. I want you to observe and talk to him. And I want you to see how is his behavior and how is he doing. Maymun did what he was told. He took the letter and he traveled to Abdul Malik ibn Omar. And when he arrived, he said, Maymun narrates, he said, I saw a man who was strong and handsome and respectable. He was well dressed. And I sat down with him and I found him to be humble. He chose his words carefully. He was a man of knowledge. He had command of the language. So he described his qualities and he was impressed by him. He was a man who had tremendous knowledge of the Quran, and he continued to describe all of the great things of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. And before he gave him the letter from his father, he said that Abdul Malik ibn Umar said to Maymun, he said to him, I'm a little bit concerned that my father might be worried about me. And he may be thinking that I've developed some arrogance in my heart. So this is before he got the letter. He said, I'm concerned that my father might be worried about that arrogance may have crept into my heart. And I'm also worried that maybe his love for me blinded him to this. So I want you to reassure him when you see him. Maymun said, I was surprised by how both of them think alike. He gave him the letter and he began to read it. And when he read it, he smiled. Maymun then started to ask him a series of questions. He said, where do you live from? How do you live? Where do you get money? He said, well, what happened was I had some money when I left Damascus, and so I bought a land. There was a family, their father died, and they inherited the land and they wanted to sell it. So I bought it from them. And I live off of the produce. So it was an agricultural land. And he said, I live off of that. That's it. He said, what do you eat? He said, some days I eat meat, but most days I don't. In other words, he wasn't living the high life because he didn't have that much money. He said, I eat regular bread and oil and that kind of thing. And some days I eat meat. So forth and so on. And he said, well, everything sounds in order. So he's going to go back and tell his father, no, the guy's fine. He's not, don't worry about him. And as they were sitting there talking, a young man came in and he said to Abdul Malik ibn Umar, he said, we have emptied it for you. And he left. So a young man came in and he said, we emptied it for you. Emptied what? He didn't say, he just said, we emptied it for you. So Maymun asked Abdul Malik, he said, what is he referring to? What did they empty for you? He said, well, they emptied the communal bathroom. You see, back then, they didn't have showers and bathtubs like we have now. When they wanted to go and take a shower, they had to go to a communal bathroom. So this was a bathroom, someone owned it, it was like a business. So you pay money and you go in and you shower. They have hot water because they're able to heat the water and whatnot. And then you dry up, you put your clothes on and you go back home. So that's how they did it. And many different people, they had little rooms and people would go in and shower. So he said, we emptied the whole bathroom for you, the whole communal bathroom. And Maymoon was surprised by this, said, why did they empty it for you? Why don't you go there with the rest of the people? I mean, what makes you better than other people that they have to empty? You know, first of all, that's arrogance, because you are telling them to empty the bathroom for you when, you know, why don't you just go with the other people? Secondly, it's an injustice to the owner of the bathroom, because he empties the whole bathroom for you, and when you go there and take your shower, nobody else can come in, so he doesn't make the money from the other people during that time. That's not fair. So both, it's arrogant and it's not fair. Why are you doing this? So he told him, the problem is that some people, when they go into that bathroom, they don't have the appropriate clothing on. And some of their aura is visible, meaning they don't cover properly. You know, the aura of the man should be from the belly button to below the knee. But sometimes they don't. They might have a short on or something. And he said, I don't want to see the aura of other people, so I prefer to wait till they're all done, then till they empty it, and then I go in. Maymoon said, but what you should do is wait till the end of the day. Don't do it in the middle of the day. Let everybody finish. When there are no more customers, then you go in and take your shower. He said, the only reason I didn't do that is because it's very cold at night in this part of the world. But I will take your advice and I will do that. And I won't have any more arrogance in my heart. The problem was that Malik didn't want his father to know about this situation. So he told Maymoon, he said, you know, I want to urge you to not tell my father of what you just saw. And I'm going to follow your advice. Because if you tell him, I think he will misinterpret it and he will be upset with me. And I don't want my father to be upset with me. Maymoon said to himself, I need to test him now. So he said, Abdul Malik, are you telling me to lie to your father? You see now, he's trying to trap him, right? Are you telling me to lie? If he says, Maymoon, did you see anything you didn't like? Should I lie to him? Abdul Malik said, no, do not lie to my father. If he asks you, say, I saw something I didn't like, and I advised him, and he took my advice, and he corrected his behavior. And I know that when you say that, my father will not ask you about the details. Subhanallah. That's the kind of trust that the father and son had. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.